The crystal chandeliers cast a warm glow over the intimate tables at Marseille, one of Manhattan's most exclusive French restaurants. Sophie clutched her wine glass with trembling fingers, her blue eyes darting nervously toward the entrance every few seconds. She shouldn't have come here. This was too expensive, too visible, too risky. But her best friend Maya had insisted that hiding forever wasn't living, and Sophie desperately wanted to feel normal again, even if just for one evening. The dress she wore, a simple black sheet that Maya had lent her, felt like armor and exposure all at once. Her blonde hair, freshly colored just yesterday to maintain the disguise, fell in loose waves past her shoulders. 3 months ago, it had been chestnut brown. 3 months ago, she'd been someone else entirely. Sophie lifted the wine to her lips, savoring the rich Bordeaux, when her blood turned to ice. Through the frosted glass doors, she saw him. Derek. His tall, imposing frame was unmistakable, that predatory way he moved through space as if he owned it. Her ex-boyfriend scanned the restaurant's waiting area, his dark eyes hunting. Panic seized her chest. She'd been so careful. New phone number, new apartment in Brooklyn under Maya's name, new hair color, new routine. How had he found her? The restraining order clearly meant nothing to him, just like her pleas had meant nothing during those final, terrifying weeks of their relationship. Sophie's hand shook so violently that wine sloshed onto the white tablecloth. She couldn't go to the bathroom. He'd see her. Couldn't run for the back exit. Too far, too exposed. The maitre d' was gesturing, likely telling Derek he couldn't search the dining room without a reservation. It would buy her maybe 30 seconds. Her eyes swept the restaurant in desperation, landing on a man sitting alone at a corner table. He was perhaps in his mid-30s, impeccably dressed in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than her monthly rent. Dark hair swept back from a face that could have been carved from marble, all sharp angles and strong lines. He was reading something on his phone, a glass of whiskey untouched beside his plate. Sophie didn't think. Couldn't think. Survival instinct propelled her forward. She crossed the restaurant in seconds, her heart hammering so loudly she was certain everyone could hear it. The man looked up just as she reached his table, his eyes, a striking gray-green, widening in surprise. "I'm so sorry," Sophie gasped, and before he could respond, she slid onto his lap, wrapping her arms around his neck. Please just go along with this. There's a man looking for me and I need him to think I'm with you." Up close, he smelled like cedar and something crisp, expensive. His body went rigid beneath her, muscles tensing, but he didn't push her away. Sophie pressed her face against his neck, her blonde hair creating a curtain, and dared a glance toward the entrance. Derek had pushed past the maitre d'. He was in the dining room now, his eyes scanning each table with methodical precision. Sophie's entire body trembled. The man beneath her shifted, and Sophie felt his hand, large, warm, settle on her waist. Not grabbing, not possessive, just steadying, protective. The man in the leather jacket? His voice was low, cultured, with the barest hint of an accent she couldn't place. Scanning the room like he's searching for someone? "Yes," Sophie whispered against his collar. "Please, I know this is insane, but..." "Sure." His other hand came up to her back, and to any observer, they would look like a couple sharing an intimate moment. "I've got you. Just stay exactly like this." Sophie's breath came in shallow gasps. She could feel Derek's presence, could sense him moving between tables. Closer. She buried her face deeper against the stranger's neck, and his arms tightened around her almost imperceptibly. "He's looking this way," the man murmured. Then, louder, he said, "Darling, you're going to wrinkle my suit." His tone was affectionate, teasing, completely convincing. Sophie forced herself to lift her head, to play the part. She met his eyes and found them watching her with an intensity that momentarily made her forget Derek entirely. This close, she could see flecks of gold in the gray-green, could see the perfect symmetry of his features marred only by a small scar above his left eyebrow. "Sorry," she whispered, trying to smile, try to look like a woman with her lover and not a terrified rabbit. His lips quirked. "Don't be..." Then his gaze shifted past her shoulder. He stopped, staring at us. "What's our story?" Sophie's mind raced. We've been dating for 3 months. We met at a gallery opening in Chelsea. Good. Specific. His thumb traced an absent circle on her waist. The gesture so natural that Sophie almost believed it herself. What's my name? Alexander, she said, pulling the first elegant name from her panicked brain. Something flickered across his face. Surprise. Maybe amusement. Close enough. And you are... Sophie. Well, Sophie. His voice dropped lower, intimate. He's still watching. I'm going to need you to sell this a bit more convincingly. Before Sophie could ask what he meant, his hand slid up her back to cup the nape of her neck. The gesture was possessive, unmistakably romantic. Her breath caught. May I? He asked quietly, his eyes dropping to her lips. Sophie understood immediately. Her cheeks flushed hot, but she nodded. Yes. He kissed her softly, a gentle press of lips that sent an electric shock down her spine. It was brief, chaste almost, but there was something about the tenderness of it that made Sophie's eyes sting with unexpected tears. When was the last time someone had touched her with anything other than anger or demand? When he pulled back, his eyes searched hers with concern. All right. Sophie nodded, not trusting her voice. He's leaving. The man, apparently actually named something close to Alexander, reported, walking toward the exit. The maitre d' is escorting him out. Relief crashed over Sophie in a wave so powerful her entire body sagged. She would have slid right off his lap if his arms hadn't been holding her steady. Oh, God, she breathed. Oh, God. Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm so sorry. That was completely insane of me. Hey! His voice was gentle but firm. Breathe. You're safe. Sophie sucked in a shaky breath, then another. The adrenaline was draining away, leaving her trembling and weak. She became suddenly, acutely aware that she was still sitting on a complete stranger's lap in the middle of an expensive restaurant. I should. She started to move, but his hand steadied her. Wait. Give it another minute. Make sure he's actually gone. He was right. Derek could be waiting outside, could be watching through the windows. Sophie settled back down, hyper-aware of every point of contact between them. She could feel the solid warmth of his chest, the strength in the arms that held her. I'm Alec, by the way, he said. Alex Sawyer. Your instinct was good. Alexander is my middle name. Sophie-chan. She managed a weak smile. And I swear I'm not making a habit of throwing myself at strange men in restaurants. I should hope not. It's rather traumatic for us. But his eyes were kind, concerned. The man who was looking for you, ex-boyfriend? Sophie's throat tightened. Ex-fiancé, actually. I left him 3 months ago. Got a restraining order. Clearly, he's ignoring it. Alex's jaw tightened, a muscle jumping beneath the sculpted line. Has he hurt you before? Sophie looked away. That's a heavy conversation for someone who just met me. Sophie. He waited until she met his eyes again. Has he? Something about the way he asked, not demanding, but genuinely concerned, made her defenses crumble. Yes, that's why I left. That's why I'm hiding. She laughed bitterly. Not very successfully, apparently. How'd he find you here? I have no idea. I've been so careful. New phone, new address, new hair color, new gym, new grocery store. Everything. Alec frowned, thinking, does he know your friends? Could he have followed one of them? Sophie's stomach dropped. Maya. Derek knew Maya. They'd all worked at the same marketing firm before Sophie had quit to escape him. Oh no, my best friend. She made the reservation tonight. He must have... The implications hit her like a physical blow. He's tracking her, or hacked her email, or something. God, Maya has no idea she's being watched. You need to tell her. Tonight. Alec reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a phone. Not a phone, actually, but something sleeker, more expensive looking. He tapped something and showed her the screen. This is the view from the street camera, outside. See? He's gone. But here's what we're going to do. I'm going to ask for my check, and then I'm going to walk you out to a car. We'll go somewhere public, somewhere safe, and we'll figure out next steps. All right. Sophie stared at him. You don't have to do that. You've already done so much. Sophie, his voice was firm. I'm not letting you leave here alone to deal with a dangerous ex. So either accept my help gracefully, or I'll follow you around like an awkward bodyguard. Your choice. Despite everything, Sophie felt a smile tug at her lips. You're very bossy. So I've been told. He gestured to a waiter with 2 fingers, and the man appeared instantly. Check, please. And call Charles. Tell him to bring the car to the front entrance. Right away, Mr. Sawyer. As the waiter hurried off, Sophie finally slid from Alec's lap, smoothing down her dress. Her legs felt unsteady. Alec stood as well, and she realized he was tall, at least 6'2", maybe more. He shrugged into his suit jacket with practiced ease, then offered her his arm. Ready? Sophie hesitated. Everything about this felt surreal. I don't understand why you're being so nice to me. You don't know me. I literally assaulted you in the middle of your dinner. Alec's expression softened. Let's just say I know what it's like to feel trapped by someone. Different circumstances, but I understand, and I'm in a position to help. So let me... There was something in his voice, a darkness that suggested his own complicated history. Sophie found herself trusting him despite the absurdity of the situation. She slipped her hand through his arm. Okay, thank you. They walked through the restaurant together, and Sophie noticed the way people watched them, not rudely but with interest. Several diners nodded at Alec respectfully. The maitre d' practically bowed as they passed. Popular place? Sophie asked quietly. I eat here occasionally. I know the owner. Outside, a sleek black car waited at the curb. Not a limousine, but something that screamed wealth and power. A driver in a crisp uniform opened the back door. Charles, we'll be taking a detour before heading home. Somewhere well-lit and public. Suggestions? The Carlisle Hotel, sir. The cafe is open late, very busy on Friday evenings. Perfect. Alec handed Sophie into the car, then slid in beside her. The leather seats were impossibly soft, and the interior smelled like new car and expensive cologne. As Charles pulled away from the curb, Sophie felt herself begin to shake again, the reality of what had just happened catching up with her. Here. Alec pulled a cashmere throw from somewhere and draped it over her shoulders. Shock. Completely normal. Sophie wrapped the blanket around herself gratefully. I thought I was safe. I thought I'd finally escaped him. You will be, but you need better protection than a piece of paper. Alec was quiet for a moment, then said, I want you to talk to someone, a friend of mine. She runs a security firm that specializes in cases like yours, stalking, domestic violence, protective services. I can't afford. She owes me a favor. Several, actually. She'll do it pro bono. Sophie's eyes stung. Why are you doing this? Alec turned to face her fully, and in the dim light of the car, his expression was serious, almost fierce. Because I spent years watching someone I loved being controlled by a man who treated her like property, and I was too young and powerless to stop it. So now, when I can help, when I do have power, I use it. It's that simple. Who? Sophie started to ask, but Alec shook his head. Ancient history. The point is, you don't have to face this alone. Let me help. The car glided through Manhattan traffic, and Sophie found herself studying her rescuer in the passing streetlights. There was something about him, an aura of controlled power that should have intimidated her, but somehow didn't. Despite having just met him, despite the bizarre circumstances, she felt safer than she had in months. Can I ask you something? She said. Of course. When I sat on your lap, you didn't freak out. Most people would have. You just went with it. Why? Alex smiled slightly. I'm good at reading people. Body language, micro-expressions. It's part of what I do for a living. The moment you approached, I saw genuine terror in your eyes. Not games, not flirting. Real fear. So I trusted my instinct. And kiss me? You have a problem with my methodology? His tone was teasing, gentle. No, Sophie admitted, feeling heat creep up her neck. Actually, it was really convincing. Oscar-worthy performance. Well, Alex said softly, it wasn't entirely a performance. Their eyes met, and Sophie's breath caught. The air in the car suddenly felt charged, electric. Before she could process what he'd just implied, Charles announced their arrival at the Carlyle. The hotel cafe was indeed busy, filled with well-dressed patrons enjoying late dinners and drinks. Alec guided Sophie to a corner booth that offered both privacy and a clear view of the entrance. He ordered coffee for both of them, then pulled out his phone. "I'm texting my friend now. Her name is Rachel Torres. Former FBI, now runs her own firm. She's—" He paused, fingers moving over the screen. "Actually, she's asking if she can join us. She lives nearby. Would that be all right?" Sophie wrapped her hands around the coffee cup that had appeared. "Yes, absolutely." While they waited, Alec asked her questions, not intrusive ones, just gentle inquiries about her life, her work, her interests. Sophie found herself opening up, talking about her job as a graphic designer, her love of art, her dreams of starting her own studio someday. She carefully avoided discussing the year she'd lost to Derek's control. "And your family?" Alec asked. "Are they in New York?" Sophie's expression clouded. "California. And they don't know about Derek, about any of it. They really liked him, thought he was successful and charming. I was too embarrassed to tell them what he became behind closed doors. Too ashamed that I'd let it happen." "Sophie." Alec's hand covered hers on the table. "Nothing that happened was your fault. You know that, right?" "Logically, yes. Emotionally," she shrugged helplessly. A woman appeared at their table before Alec could respond. She was perhaps 40, with dark hair pulled back in a sleek ponytail and sharp, intelligent eyes. She wore jeans and a leather jacket, but something about her screamed authority. "Alec." She slid into the booth beside Sophie. "And you must be Sophie. I'm Rachel." They shook hands, and Rachel's grip was firm, confident. Within minutes, Sophie found herself recounting the entire story. Meeting Derek at work 2 years ago, the whirlwind romance that felt like a fairy tale, the engagement, and then the gradual escalation of control. The way he'd isolated her from friends, monitored her phone, controlled her schedule. The first time he grabbed her arm hard enough to bruise. The night she'd finally run, stealing away while he was at a business dinner, taking only what she could fit in one suitcase. Rachel listened intently, occasionally asking clarifying questions, taking notes on her phone. When Sophie finished, Rachel's expression was grim. "First thing tomorrow, we're going to police. You need to report this violation of the restraining order. Then we're going to upgrade your security. New phone with encrypted software. Review your digital footprint. Possibly relocate you to a more secure building. I'll assign someone to sweep your current apartment for tracking devices." "I can't afford," Sophie started. "We'll discuss fees later," Rachel said firmly. "Right now, safety is paramount. How did he know you'd be at Marseille tonight?" Sophie explained about Maya and the reservation. Rachel nodded grimly. "Your friend's email is almost certainly compromised. We'll need to tell her to change all her passwords, run security checks." "But Sophie, I have to ask, is there any chance Derek has access to your documents? Birth certificate, social security information?" "Ah, yes. We lived together for a year. He had keys to everything. Then we need to watch your credit. He could be planning something bigger than just tracking you down. Identity theft, financial sabotage, framing you for something. Men like him, when they lose control, they escalate." Sophie felt sick. "I thought getting away was enough. I thought he'd just move on." "Men like Derek don't move on," Rachel said gently. "They see it as a challenge, a battle to win. But here's what he doesn't know. You're not alone anymore. You have resources, protection." She glanced at Alec meaningfully. Sophie followed her gaze. Alec was watching her with that same intense focus, as if she were the only person in the room, as if her problems were his problems now. "I'm going to make some calls," Rachel said, standing. "Get things rolling. Alec, can I borrow you for a minute?" They stepped away from the booth, heads bent together in quiet conversation. Sophie watched them, feeling untethered. 6 hours ago, she'd been alone, hiding, terrified. Now she had a security expert and a mysterious stranger who turned her world upside down with his kindness. When Alec returned to the booth, his expression was serious. Rachel's going to have someone watch your building tonight, just in case Derek tries to find your address. And he hesitated, which seemed unusual for someone so confident. I have a proposition for you. Sophie raised her eyebrows. That sounds ominous. I have a guest house on my property in Tribeca. It's secure, gated community, 24-hour security, surveillance cameras, completely separate from the main house, totally private. You could stay there while Rachel's team works on a longer-term solution, just until we know you're safe. Sophie stared at him. You're offering me a place to stay? You don't even know me. I know you're in danger. I know you need somewhere secure. And I happen to have the means to provide that. He leaned forward. Sophie, I'm not asking you to trust me completely. I'm asking you to be practical. Rachel's team can't protect you adequately in a building where Derek already knows your friend lives. You need a clean break, somewhere he has no connection to. Let me provide that. It was insane. Absolutely insane. Sophie had known this man for less than 2 hours. But as she looked into his eyes, those steady, earnest gray-green eyes, she found herself believing him, trusting him. Why? She whispered. Really, truly, why are you doing this? Alec was quiet for a long moment. Finally, he said, My mother, the person I mentioned before. She spent 15 years married to a man who controlled every aspect of her life. My father. He said the word like it tasted bitter. He was charming, wealthy, connected. Everyone thought he was wonderful. But at home, he was a tyrant. Psychological abuse mostly, but it was enough. She finally left when I was 16, but by then the damage was done. She never really recovered her sense of self. I'm sorry, Sophie said softly. She's better now. Happier. But I remember what it was like, watching her shrink herself to appease him. And I swore that if I ever had the power to help someone in a similar situation, I would. So that's what I'm doing. Nothing more complicated than that. Sophie felt tears prick her eyes. You're a good person, Alex Sawyer. I'm really not, he said wryly. But I try, occasionally, to do good things. So what do you say? Will you accept my help? Sophie thought about her cramped studio apartment, about Derek potentially knowing where Maya lived, about the fear that had been her constant companion for 3 months. She thought about the way Alec had held her in the restaurant, protective and gentle, the way he'd listened to her story, without judgment, the way he looked at her like she mattered. Okay, she said. Yes, thank you. Alec's smile transformed his face, softening the harsh angles into something warmer. Good. Rachel will ride with us to your place, so you can pack some things. Then we'll get you settled. The next hour passed in a blur. Rachel did indeed ride with him to Sophie's apartment, where another member of her team, a serious-looking man named Marcus, was waiting to sweep for bugs and trackers. While he worked, Sophie threw clothes and toiletries into her suitcase, feeling dazed. Maya arrived just as they were leaving, having received Sophie's frantic text. She hugged her friend tightly. I'm so sorry, Maya whispered. I had no idea he was tracking me. Rachel explained everything. They're going to help me too, make sure I'm secure. Just be careful, Sophie said. Promise me. I promise. And Sophie, Maya pulled back, glancing meaningfully at where Alex stood by the door, giving them privacy. That man is gorgeous and clearly smitten with you. So maybe this terrible night has a silver lining. Maya, it's not like that. Just don't do anything I wouldn't do. Maya grinned, then sobered. Seriously, though, I'm glad you're okay. Text me when you're settled. I will. The drive to Tribeca was quiet. Sophie stared out the window at the glittering Manhattan skyline, trying to process everything. When the car finally pulled up to the gated entrance, she felt her jaw drop. The property was stunning. A modern townhouse that probably cost more than she'd earned in several lifetimes, with a smaller but equally beautiful guest house set back in a private courtyard. Security cameras were discreetly positioned, and a uniformed guard waved them through. Home sweet home, Alex said as Charles parked. Well, my home, your temporary sanctuary. He led her to the guest house, which turned out to be a fully equipped two-bedroom apartment with soaring ceilings, modern furniture, and a kitchen that looked like it belonged in a magazine. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the private courtyard. "It's beautiful," Sophie breathed. "The fridge is stocked. Wi-Fi password is on the counter. My number is programmed into that phone." He pointed to a sleek smartphone on the kitchen island. "It's secure, encrypted." Rachel approved it. "The main house is just across the courtyard if you need anything." "I mean anything, Sophie. 3 in the morning doesn't matter. You call me." Sophie set down her suitcase, feeling overwhelmed. "I don't know what to say." "Thank you" feels inadequate. "Then don't say anything." Alec moved toward the door, then paused. "Oh, and Sophie, tomorrow we're going to figure this out. Together. You're not alone in this anymore." After he left, Sophie stood in the middle of the beautiful apartment and finally let herself cry. Not from fear this time, but from relief, from gratitude, from the strange, confusing flutter in her chest whenever she thought about gray-green eyes and a gentle voice saying, "I've got you." She didn't know who Alex Sawyer really was. Didn't know why fate had put her at his table tonight. But standing in this safe, beautiful space, Sophie felt something she hadn't felt in a very long time. Hope. The next morning, Sophie woke to sunlight streaming through gauzy curtains and the smell of fresh coffee. For a moment, she forgot where she was. Then memory crashed back. Derek at Marseille, Alex's protective arms, the events of the previous night. She padded into the kitchen to find a note on the counter in bold, masculine handwriting. "Breakfast is in the warmer. Take your time. Come to the main house when you're ready." Sophie opened the warming drawer to find croissants, fresh fruit, and what appeared to be a gourmet omelet. Her stomach growled. When had she last eaten? Not at the restaurant. Certainly, after showering and changing into jeans and a soft sweater. Sophie followed the stone path across the courtyard to the main house. She hesitated before knocking, suddenly nervous. In daylight, everything seemed different, less urgent, more complicated. Alec answered the door in dark jeans and a gray Henley that somehow made his eyes even more striking. His hair was slightly damp, as if he'd recently showered. He smiled when he saw her. "Morning. Sleep okay?" "Actually, yes. Better than I have in months. That bed is like sleeping on a cloud." "Good." He stepped back to let her in. "Rachel's on her way over. She's bringing some document for you to review. New security protocols, police report information, that kind of thing. But first, coffee?" The main house was even more impressive than the guest house. All soaring ceilings, modern art, and expensive furniture arranged with casual elegance. But it didn't feel sterile or cold. There were books everywhere, comfortable throws draped over chairs, photos on the mantel. Sophie found herself drawn to the photos. A woman who must be Alec's mother, elegant and kind-eyed. A younger Alec in a graduation cap and gown. Several pictures of Alec with various people, at charity events, business functions, casual gatherings. "Is this your family?" she asked. "Some of them. The rest are friends, colleagues." Alec handed her a mug of coffee. "I'm an only child, which made things both easier and harder when my parents split. Easier because there was no custody battle. Harder because I carried all my mother's emotional weight alone." "Where's your father now?" "Switzerland, last I heard. We don't speak. He tried to reconcile a few years ago, but..." Alex shrugged. "Some damage is permanent." Before Sophie could respond, the doorbell chimed. Rachel arrived with a briefcase and her serious-looking colleague Marcus. "Morning," Rachel said briskly. "Sophie, we got good news and complicated news. Good news first. Derek hasn't made any financial moves under your name, and we swept your apartment. Clean. No tracking devices." "That's a relief," Sophie said. "The complicated news is that Derek filed a missing persons report on you yesterday morning." Sophie's coffee cup slipped from her suddenly numb fingers. Alec caught it before it hit the floor. "He did what?" Sophie whispered. "He claimed you disappeared 3 months ago, and he's been frantically searching for you. Claimed he's worried about your mental health. Suggested you might be off your medications. Which is bullshit, obviously, since the police have your restraining order on file." but it's a smart move on his part. He's establishing a narrative where he's a concerned ex, not the abuser. Sophie sank onto Alec's couch, her legs suddenly weak. So what do I do? We're going to the police today. You're going to give a statement about last night's violation. Show them the restraining order, document everything. We're building a case. Marcus also found something interesting. Rachel nodded at her colleague. Marcus opened his tablet. Derek Rodriguez, age 35. Senior Vice President at Hudson Marketing Group. Clean record officially, but I did some digging. 2 previous girlfriends filed restraining orders that were later dropped. Another ex-girlfriend moved to Portland with no forwarding address. Pattern of behavior. Sophie felt sick. He told me they were all crazy, that they'd tried to trap him. Classic abuser narrative. Rachel said grimly, "We're going to reach out to these women. See if any are willing to give statements. The more evidence we have of a pattern, the better. But Sophie, you need to understand, this might get worse before it gets better. Derek is escalating. The missing persons report is just the opening move." Alec, who had been quietly listening, spoke up. "Then we need to be strategic. What if we flip his narrative?" Everyone turned to him. He was leaning against the kitchen island, arms crossed, looking thoughtful. "He's claiming to be the concerned ex," Alec continued. "But what if we show that Sophie isn't hiding? She's living her life protected, safe, and happy. What if we make it clear that she has resources and people who believe her, that she's not some isolated victim he can manipulate?" Rachel's eyes narrowed thoughtfully. "You're thinking about optics, public perception. I'm thinking about power dynamics. Derek's power comes from Sophie being alone and afraid. If we remove that, if we show she has support, powerful support, maybe he backs off. Or, at the very least, he becomes more careful, which makes him easier to catch in a violation. How will we show that?" Sophie asked. Alec met her eyes. "Would you be comfortable with us being seen together in public? Nothing overly dramatic, just establishing that you have a life, connections, someone watching out for you." Sophie understood what he was really asking. Would she be willing to fake a relationship, or at least the appearance of one, to make Derek back off? "Like what we did at the restaurant," she said slowly. "Exactly, except less improvised, more deliberate." Alec pushed off on the island and came to sit on the coffee table in front of her. "I'm not suggesting anything that would make you uncomfortable, and this would be purely strategic. But men like Derek, they're territorial. If he thinks you've moved on to someone he perceives as more powerful, more connected, it might make him reconsider his approach." Rachel was nodding slowly. "It's not a bad idea. Alec, you're fairly well known in certain circles. If Derek did his homework, he'd know exactly who you are and what you're capable of. That might give him pause." "Wait," Sophie said. "What do you mean, well known? Who are you?" There was a long pause. Alec and Rachel exchanged glances. "I thought you knew," Alec said finally. "I assumed, but of course, why would you?" He ran a hand through his hair. "Sophie, I run Sawyer Enterprises. We're a venture capital firm. We invest in tech companies, startups, various industries. I'm also on the board of several nonprofits and foundations." Sophie stared at him blankly. Then, slowly, realization dawned. Sawyer Enterprises. She'd seen that name in business magazines. Heard it mentioned in marketing meetings when companies were seeking funding. They were one of the most powerful VC firms in the country. "Oh my God," she breathed. "You're that Alex Sawyer. You're... People call you the Billionaire Whisperer because you can predict which startups will succeed." "The nickname is ridiculous," Alex said, looking uncomfortable. "But yes, I have some success in the industry." "Some success?" Sophie felt slightly hysterical. "You were on the cover of Forbes last year. You're worth..." She couldn't even finish the sentence. "The number is overinflated," Alex said quickly. "Most of my wealth is tied up in investments and properties. I'm not swimming in gold coins like Scrooge McDuck." Despite everything, Sophie laughed. But then the implications hit her. "So last night, when I threw myself at you, I literally chose the most high-profile person in the restaurant." "Probably," Alec admitted, "but I'm glad you did. because now I can actually help. Sophie's mind was reeling. This changed everything. Alec wasn't just some kind stranger. He was one of the most powerful men in New York. Derek would know that. Derek, who was obsessed with status and success, would absolutely know that. Okay, she said slowly. Let's say we do this. We create the appearance that I'm, what, dating you? How would that even work? Rachel jumped in. Nothing excessive. You're seen together at a few public places. Maybe a charity event or two. Alec attends dozens of them. We let it be known through appropriate channels that you're under his protection. Word will get back to Derek. And if it doesn't work, if he escalates anyway, then we have legal recourse and documentation, Rachel said. But at least we've tried to defuse the situation without violence or further trauma. And Sophie, you be safe. Alec's events have security. His home has security. We'd be minimizing your exposure while maximizing the message. It was strange and surreal and completely insane. But hadn't her life been insane for the past year? At least this version of insanity came with protection and resources. What do you think? Alec asked gently. I know it's a lot, and I'll understand if you're not comfortable with it. We can find other ways to keep you safe. Sophie looked at him. This gorgeous, impossibly wealthy man who had, for reasons she still didn't fully understand, decided to make her problems his own. There was something in his eyes, a vulnerability beneath the confidence, that made her trust him. Okay, she said, let's do it. The next 2 weeks passed in a whirlwind. Rachel's team worked tirelessly, building a case against Derek while upgrading Sophie's security. She got a new phone, new email accounts, and Marcus taught her digital hygiene practices that would have seemed paranoid a month ago but now felt essential. Alec kept his word about being available. He checked in on her daily, sometimes in person, sometimes via text. They had coffee together most mornings in his kitchen, discussing everything from art to philosophy to their favorite books. Sophie learned that Alec was wickedly smart, surprisingly funny, and carried his wealth with an ease that suggested he'd been born to it, which she learned he had been. Old money on his mother's side, self-made fortune on his own merit. What surprised Sophie most was how comfortable she felt with him. The attraction was there, impossible to ignore when he smiled at her or when their hands accidentally brushed, but he never pushed, never made her feel pressured. He was patient, kind, and protective in a way that felt empowering rather than suffocating. Their first public appearance was at a gallery opening in Chelsea. Alec had warned her there would be photographers, society reporters, people who tracked the movements of New York's elite. Sophie wore a dress that Maya had helped her pick out, deep emerald green, that made her blue eyes pop and her blonde hair glow. When Alec saw her, he stopped mid-sentence in his conversation with Charles, his eyes widening. You look stunning, he said simply. Sophie felt heat creep up her neck. Thank you. You clean up pretty well yourself. He did. The tuxedo fit him perfectly, and his hair was styled back from his face, emphasizing those striking features. They looked, Sophie had to admit, like they belonged together. At the gallery, Alec kept his hand on the small of her back, guiding her through the crowd. He introduced her to artists, collectors, philanthropists, all with an ease that spoke of a lifetime in these circles. Sophie found herself relaxing, even enjoying herself. Alec had a way of making her feel included, valued, like her opinions on the art mattered. You're good at this, she murmured during a quiet moment. At what? Making it feel real, natural. Alec's expression turned serious. Sophie, I'm not acting. I genuinely enjoy your company. The circumstances that brought us together might be unusual, but my interest in you is entirely real. Before Sophie could respond, a photographer approached. Mr. Sawyer, mind if I get a photo? Of course. Alec drew Sophie closer, his arm around her waist. She leaned into him, trying to look relaxed and happy. It wasn't hard, despite the underlying tension of why they were here. Sophie felt safe in his arms. The photo appeared in a society blog the next morning. The caption read, Venture capital titan Alex Sawyer spotted with mysterious blonde beauty at Chelsea Gallery opening. New romance of Manhattan's most eligible bachelor. Rachel called within an hour. Perfect. This is exactly what we needed. Derek will see this. I guarantee it. Sophie stared at the photo on her phone. She and Alec looked good together. Natural, like they'd been together for years rather than weeks. And the way Alec was looking at her in the photo, his eyes soft and focused entirely on her, it sent butterflies through her stomach. Sophie, Rachel's voice pulled her back. You still there? Yeah. Sorry. Just looking at the photo. You two make a convincing couple. How are you feeling about all this? That was a complicated question. Sophie felt safe, protected, hopeful, but also confused about what was real and what was performance. She was developing feelings for Alec, strong ones, and she had no idea if he felt the same or if he was just an incredibly good actor. I'm okay, Sophie said finally. Is there any word from Derek? Nothing direct, but I have someone watching him. He's been unusually quiet since the photo went up. My guess is he's regrouping, trying to figure out his next move. 3 days later, Sophie got her answer. She was working on a freelance design project in the guest house when her phone buzzed. The secure one Alec had given her. His name flashed on the screen. Hello. Sophie, where are you right now? His voice was tight, controlled. In the guest house. Why? What's wrong? Stay there. Lock the doors. I'm coming over. Her heart started racing. Alec, what happened? Derek made contact. He sent a letter to my office. Rachel has it now, but I wanted to tell you in person. Sophie's hands shook as she locked the doors and windows. Within 2 minutes, Alec was at her door, his expression grim. He held a manila envelope. Rachel must have brought it to him. He knows, Alec said without preamble, about us being together, about you staying here. How? How could he possibly? He's been following you, or having you followed. The letter includes photos. You leaving my building, us at the gallery, coffee at the cafe down the street last Tuesday. Sophie felt the blood drain from her face. She sank onto the couch. He's stalking me. Still, even with all the security. Alex sat beside her, close but not touching. Rachel's team is analyzing the photos, trying to figure out where they were taken from. We'll find whoever took them. But Sophie, there's more. The letter, it's addressed to me. He's threatening me now, warning me to stay away from his fiancée. I'm not his fiancée, Sophie said through clenched teeth. I haven't been for months. I know, but that's how he sees it, how he'll always see it. Alec ran a hand through his hair in frustration. Rachel wants to take this to the police immediately. Add it to the evidence file. This constitutes harassment of both you and me now. He's not going to stop, is he? Sophie's voice broke. No matter what we do, he's going to keep coming. Alec turned to her, and the intensity in his eyes made her breath catch. Then we keep fighting. We document everything. We build a case so strong that he has no choice but to back off. And if he doesn't, his jaw tightened, I have resources, Sophie. Legal resources, security resources, connections in places that matter. I will not let him hurt you. The fierceness in his voice, the absolute certainty, made something in Sophie's chest crack open. She'd been holding herself together for so long, staying strong, refusing to fall apart. But looking at Alec, seeing the determination in his face, the genuine care, she couldn't hold it back anymore. The tears came suddenly, violently. Sophie buried her face in her hands, her shoulders shaking. Alec didn't hesitate. He pulled her into his arms, holding her tightly as she sobbed against his chest. I'm sorry, she gasped between tears. I'm so sorry, I don't usually. Sure, you don't have to apologize. Ever. His hand stroked her hair gently. You've been incredibly brave, Sophie. But you don't have to be brave every second. It's okay to break down sometimes. Sophie clung to him, letting herself feel everything she'd been suppressing. The fear, the anger, the exhaustion of constantly looking over her shoulder. And underneath it all, something else. The terrifying, exhilarating realization that she was falling for the man holding her. When her tears finally subsided, Sophie pulled back slightly, embarrassed. I got your shirt all wet. I have others. Alec cupped her face gently, his thumbs wiping away the remaining tears. Better? Sophie nodded, unable to speak. They were so close, his face inches from hers. She could see the gold flecks in his eyes, the tiny scar above his eyebrow, could feel his breath on her lips. "Sophie," he said softly, "I need to tell you something." Her heart hammered. "Okay." "This thing between us, it started as strategy, protection, but it's not that for me anymore. Maybe it never really was." His eyes searched hers. "I care about you. Not because you need protecting. Not because I'm trying to be a hero. But because you're brilliant and strong, and when you laugh at my terrible jokes, it's the best part of my day. I'm falling for you. Have been since you sat on my lap and trusted a complete stranger to keep you safe." Sophie's breath caught. "Alec, I know the timing is terrible. I know you're dealing with so much, and I don't expect anything from you. But I needed you to know that what I feel, it's real." Sophie stared at him, her heart racing. Then, making a decision that felt both terrifying and absolutely right, she closed the distance between them and kissed him. This kiss was different from a performance at the restaurant. It was deeper, more urgent, filled with weeks of suppressed attraction and genuine emotion. Alec responded immediately, his hand sliding into her hair, pulling her closer. Sophie melted into him, losing herself in the sensation. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Alec pressed his forehead against hers. "That was," he started. "Real," Sophie finished. "That was real. Yeah." He smiled, that devastating smile that made her stomach flip. "Very real." They spent the rest of the afternoon together, talking about everything and nothing. Alec told her about growing up in Manhattan, about watching his mother struggle and find herself again. Sophie told him about her family in California, about her dreams of opening her own design studio. They talked about books and art and their favorite places in the city. It felt normal, beautifully, perfectly normal. For a few hours, Sophie forgot about Derek, forgot about the threat hanging over her. She was just a woman getting to know a man she was falling for. That evening, Rachel called with an update. The police are taking Derek's letter seriously. Combined with the photos and the pattern of behavior, they're considering upgrading the restraining order to include electronic monitoring. If Derek comes within 500 feet of you or Alec, they'll know immediately. "How long will that take?" Sophie asked. "Few days." "But Sophie, I need you to be extra careful right now. Derek is escalating. The fact that he's targeting Alec too suggests he's becoming more desperate, more irrational. Don't go anywhere without security. Don't deviate from plan." After the call, Sophie found Alec in his home office, working on his laptop. She knocked lightly on the doorframe. "Hey, you okay?" he asked, immediately giving her his full attention. "Rachel says Derek is escalating, that I need to be extra careful." Alec closed his laptop and stood. "Then we follow her advice. No unnecessary risks. Marcus will accompany you if you need to go anywhere. And Sophie," he crossed to her, taking her hands. "I meant what I said earlier. I'm not going anywhere. We're in this together." Sophie squeezed his hands. "I know. And Alec, I'm falling for you too. Have been since you kissed me and made me feel safe for the first time in a year." His smile was radiant. "Good. That's very good." Over the next week, they settled into a new routine. Sophie worked on freelance projects from the guest house, with Marcus stationed outside. She and Alec had dinner together every night, sometimes at the main house, sometimes at the guest house. They watched movies, talked for hours, slowly explored their growing feelings for each other. There were more public appearances. A charity gala where Alec introduced Sophie to what seemed like half of Manhattan's elite, a quiet dinner at a restaurant where they held hands across the table without thinking about strategy or performance. Rachel monitored Derek's movements, reporting that he'd been unusually quiet. "Too quiet," Rachel said during a security briefing. "I don't like it. He's planning something." She was right. 2 weeks after the letter, Sophie was working in the guest house when she heard shouting from outside. She looked out the window to see Derek at the main gate, yelling at the security guard. "I know she's in there." Derek's voice carried across the courtyard. Sophie, please, just talk to me." Sophie's blood turned to ice. She grabbed her phone with shaking hands and called Alec. "He's here," she said when he answered. "Derek is at the gate." "I know. I can see him from my office." "Stay inside. Lock the doors. I'm calling the police right now." Through the window, Sophie watched as more security personnel appeared. Derek was becoming more agitated, his face red, his gestures aggressive. The guard was speaking into a radio, likely calling for backup. Within minutes, police sirens wailed in the distance. Derek must have heard them too, because he suddenly lunged at the gate, trying to climb it. Security pulled him back, restraining him until the police arrived. Sophie watched, numb, as Derek was handcuffed and loaded into a police car. He was still shouting, though she couldn't make out the words anymore. Then Alec was at her door, letting himself in with the spare key she'd given him. "It's over," he said, pulling her into his arms. They arrested him. Violation of the restraining order, trespassing, attempted assault on security personnel. Rachel says with his previous violations in the documented pattern, he's looking at serious charges. Sophie trembled against him. He looked insane. "I've never seen him like that." "Good," Alex said fiercely. "Let everyone see what he really is. No more charm, no more masks, just the violence underneath." Rachel arrived an hour later with a police officer who took Sophie's statement. The officer explained that Derek would be held pending a bail hearing, and given the severity of the charges, it was unlikely he'd be released. "This is good for your case," the officer said. Multiple witnesses, video evidence, his own words recorded by security. "He won't be bothering you anymore, Ms. Chun." After everyone left, Sophie and Alex sat together on the couch in the guest house, neither speaking. Sophie felt drained, emotionally exhausted, but also lighter, like a weight she'd been carrying for a year had finally been lifted. "Is it really over?" she whispered. "The immediate threat?" "Yes. Derek will face legal consequences. Whether he'll accept defeat long term," Alex shrugged, "we'll stay vigilant. Keep security in place. But Sophie, you can breathe now. You can start living again." Sophie turned to look at him. In the dim evening light, he looked tired but relieved. This man who had given her so much, safety, protection, hope, who had opened his home and his heart to a stranger. "Thank you," she said softly, "for everything. I don't know how I can ever." Alec pressed a finger to her lips. "You don't need to thank me. You've given me something too, you know. What could I possibly have given you? Purpose, perspective, a reason to remember why all this," he gestured vaguely, encompassing his wealth, his success, "actually matters. And Sophie, you've given me something I wasn't sure I'd ever find." "What's that?" "Someone who sees me. Not my money or my success or my connections. Just me." He cupped her face gently. "I love you. I know it's fast. I know the circumstances were insane, but I'm absolutely certain. I love you." Sophie felt tears well up, but these were happy tears. Healing tears. "I love you too. I think I started falling for you the moment you said, 'I've got you.'" They kissed then, slow and deep and full of promise. When they finally pulled apart, Alex stood and offered her his hand. "Stay with me tonight? In the main house? Not because you have to, not because of Derek, but because I want you close." Sophie took his hand without hesitation. "Yes." They walked across the courtyard together, hand in hand, and Sophie felt something she hadn't felt in over a year. Peace. The nightmare with Derek wasn't completely over. There would be court dates, legal proceedings, continued vigilance. But the worst was behind her. And ahead? Ahead was this man who had appeared in her life at exactly the right moment, who had protected her without trying to control her, who had shown her what real love, patient, kind, empowering, looked like that night, wrapped in Alex's arms in his bedroom. Sophie allowed herself to dream again, about her design studio, about a future without fear, about loving and being loved in return. "What are you thinking about?" Alec murmured into her hair. "The future? For the first time in forever. I'm not afraid to think about the future." "Good, because I plan on being in it. If you'll have me." Sophie tilted her head up to kiss him. "Always." The next few months unfolded like a dream. Derek's trial was swift. With the mountain of evidence Rachel had compiled, his lawyer advised him to take a plea deal. He was sentenced to 2 years in prison, followed by 5 years of supervised release and a permanent restraining order. He would be required to attend anger management and domestic violence intervention programs. Sophie attended the sentencing, Alec beside her, holding her hand. When Derek was led away, she felt the final chains of fear fall away. She was free, truly, finally free. With that freedom came possibility. Alec invested in her design studio. Not as a favor to his girlfriend, he insisted, but as a sound business decision. Sophie's talent was undeniable, and with proper funding and support, her studio, Chin Design Company, took off quickly. She reconnected with her family, finally telling them the truth about Derek. Her mother cried. Her father was furious he hadn't known, but mostly they were relieved she was safe and happy. They loved Alec immediately, charmed by his kindness and obvious devotion to their daughter. Maya remained Sophie's best friend and biggest cheerleader. "I told you," she crowed when Sophie and Alec announced they were moving in together. Silver lining. From worst night ever to fairy tale romance. "It's not a fairy tale," Sophie protested, but she was smiling. "It's better. It's real." And it was real. Real in the way Alec brought her coffee in bed on Sunday mornings. Real in the way they argued about whose turn it was to do dishes, and then laughed at themselves for arguing. Real in the way he supported her business dreams, and she attended his charity events, both of them building something together. 1 year after that fateful night at Marseille, Alec took Sophie back to the restaurant. They sat at the same corner table where she'd first thrown herself into his lap. "I've been thinking about that night," Alec said over dessert. "About how scared you were, how brave you were, how you trusted me when you had no reason to. Best decision I ever made," Sophie said softly. "Second best." Alec pulled a small velvet box from his jacket pocket and opened it to reveal a stunning diamond ring. "The best decision you'll ever make is saying yes to this." Sophie's breath caught. "Alec, I know we talk about taking things slow. I know you've been through trauma, and you need time to heal. But Sophie, I don't need more time to know that I want to spend my life with you. If you need more time, I'll wait. A year, 5 years, however long. But I wanted you to know I'm certain. You're it for me." Sophie looked at the ring, then at Alec's face. Open, vulnerable, full of love. She thought about the journey that had brought them here, the fear, the healing, the discovery of what real love looked like. She thought about the future they could build together, as partners, as equals. "I don't need more time," she said, smiling through happy tears. Yes, I'll marry you." Alec slipped the ring onto her finger, then pulled her into his arms, kissing her as the restaurant erupted in applause around them. Sophie laughed against his lips, joy bubbling up from somewhere deep inside. "I love you," she whispered. "I love you, too, from the moment you sat on my lap and asked me to play along." Sophie pulled back to look at him, this man who had saved her and loved her and shown her what she deserved. "You know what the best part is?" "What?" "I came to this restaurant a year ago terrified and running. Now I'm here celebrating the beginning of forever. Same place, completely different woman." "Not completely different," Alec corrected gently. "You were always strong, always brave. You just needed someone to remind you of that, to be there while you remembered it yourself." As they left the restaurant that night, hand in hand, Sophie looked back at the corner table one last time. That table where her life had changed in an instant, where a stranger had become protector, a friend, a love. Sometimes, she thought, the worst moment of our lives lead us exactly where we need to be, to the people we're meant to find, to the love we deserve. She squeezed Alec's hand, and he squeezed back, and together they walked out into the Manhattan night, ready for whatever came next. Together,